people join, we can just note for the record that they joined.
Okay. Okay. Well,
for some reason, the recording is taking a second to go. It'll ding in a second, hopefully. Here we go. Any second.
Well, let me know.
There it goes. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good. Well, good morning to everyone on the Niskayuna Complete Streets Committee and anybody else who's watching this film later on or tuning in to watch our proceedings here. This is the January 29, 2021 meeting of the Town Complete Streets Committee. And we were all reappointed by the town board at their January 5, 2021 meeting. So we're anxious to keep going on safety and accessibility here in the town. So Lauren Brown, with us not yet, so she'll catch up. Tess Healy, don't see Tess, but she'll catch up to us. Paulina, good morning, Paulina. Thank you for being here. Carla Dougal is with us.
Yes.
I'm here. David Hogenkamp, David yet? Maybe on the way. Dart, thank you for being here. And Jim Levy, I know Jim is probably going to be along in a couple minutes. And we'd like to, we have our town planner, Laura Robertson. Good morning, Laura. And our deputy town planner, Clark Henry. Good morning, Clark. How are you? And Jean Fody from the planning office to help keep us on true and narrow. And I know I keep saying I'm going to give Pete a call to see if he'd be willing to join us, so I'll have to do that. But anyway, and I hope other folks join you. Okay, taking a look at the minutes. I don't know if anyone else has a thought they want to offer on any of the minutes. If not, on the June 24, I was wondering, also present, if we should add a Ashok to that, because we make reference to him on line 56 that he's asking for a push button signal. So I'm just wondering on also present if we could add Ashok as a member of the Conservation Advisory Council who joins us. And then on the July 31, 2020 minutes, line 143, we're talking about Niskayuna school improvements, and it makes reference to Mr. Salzberg, and I know Howard Schlossberg, who's the chair of the school board, occasionally makes a saucy remark that keeps us all on our toes, but we should change the spelling there to Howard Schlossberg, SCHLOSSBERG, school board president. So, morning, Tess. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Bill.
On the August 28 meeting minutes, we have Carla Dougal on line 18, absent excused, but I think we also want to add Lauren Brown to that. So I think she sent an email saying she couldn't be with us. So, anyone else have a correction or something that needs to be repaired on the minutes of June 24, July 31, or August 28? If not, I would like to move acceptance of those minutes and ask for a second. Do I have a second out there?
I'll second it.
I second it.
Okay. Second from Dart Strayer, assisted by Paulina on that. So all in favor of accepting the minutes of June 24, July 31, August 28, if you'd hold up your hand. Jim Levy has now joined us. We're doing the minutes, Jim, of June 24, July 31, August 28. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good. Minutes are accepted. We have lots of old business to talk about, but we'll get to that as we move along. Under new business, we have the Youth Initiative nomination. And in the packet, we got the name of Elise Corbin, who some of us should recognize, I think. Her mother is Jeanette Shue, who helped us with the 2018 bike rodeo and was a member of the Complete Streets for a year or so. And her husband Jeff Corbin, he's been active countywide on the Schenectady Climate Task Force. And Elise helped their mother and us with our pop-up bike rodeo. And when you see a mom and daughter riding to school or riding around town, even in cold weather with their jackets on, it's a good chance that it's Jeanette and her daughter Elise on the way to school or on her way to somewhere else. So I hope other people have had a chance to look at it. I guess if Elise would like to join Complete Streets, I know the school board has, I think, 2 or 3 student representatives to come to school board meetings, and it's they have a good perspective because things are happening in the school that they want to alert the school board to, and sometimes the school board tries different things and they want to get student reaction to those things, or the students have input on things they think that the school district should be doing on various things going on in the world and in the community, and their school board members are always happy to have their input. So unless someone else has a thought, I'd like to recommend that we go ahead and extend an invitation to Elise Corbin to join Complete Streets as a student representative. So a second on that, perhaps. Pauline, a second. All in favor of recommending Elise Corbin to be a student rep for Niskuna Complete Streets by aye or raise your hand?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I noticed that she says she has experience writing grants, Bill. Maybe we can sign her up.
Yes, I like it. I like it. Okay. Let's move on to discussion items then. Number 1, standard traffic calming measures. And Paulina, we talked about putting this together as a product of our chicanes demonstration project on Regent Street, and also the Knott Street East project, where the Kelts property, the planning board was discussing some traffic calming ideas, either maybe some trees in the median or other things. And I guess we felt like to help the planning board, Conservation Advisory Council, other people, if we had an inventory of some traffic calming things, a description of what they are, and then importantly, some picture examples where people might be able to take a drive in their car to somewhere in the Capital District to see an example. And Paulina, thank you for getting us started. If you want to talk about a couple items that you put in the packet for us to get started with, you had some items there. I think one of them was the traffic circle, Paulina, at River Road and Rosendale, or was it the traffic circle at the bottom of the Rexford Bridge? I forgot.
The images that I put in were just free images from Wikipedia, but Jim offered to send me images that he's taken that obviously are licensed royalty free, but I thought I could drive around town and take pictures of areas, you know, that are in Niskayuna or around town, so that the reference that we say seen in Niskayuna at would be a picture of a place in Niskayuna. I just haven't had time to do it, but that's the long-term plan. Either use images or take pictures ourselves. So that's
Pauline, I do owe you those pictures, and I will get those to you. And I do actually have one of the roundabout down at the river that I actually took from the bike path through the fence. So I've got a kind of a nice like upper aerial shot if we want to use that one for the roundabout. But yeah, I'll give you photos of everything I have so they're royalty free, and we can use those if we can't find something more local.
Yeah, there's no rush.
Yep.
What is a speed cushion? Is that like a rubberized thing that goes on the road? Because we went over some of those on the way in today in Philadelphia, and they're really effective. Like they're like these rubberized things that really protrude up. And is that, because I wasn't sure, like I saw speed table and speed cushion, and I wasn't sure what's the difference between.
I need help writing those in, Carla. So I need some expert help completing that table. Those were just to get us started.
Okay.
I just
Well,
found
someone who's 65, a speed cushion is something you buy at the auto parts store. You put it on the driver's seat and drive over.
Okay.
You'll all get there, but
that was
no.
compiled by another organization, but I didn't want to plagiarize their whole thing. So I just kind of took some of their ideas, but I didn't want to take their entire thing. So I just took some of theirs. I wrote in some definitions, but I was kind of hoping that we could all contribute to it or take from some other sources so it wasn't completely from one spot. But it was just to get me started. I knew it was an agenda item that we spoke about, and I was kind of trapped in one location waiting for my daughter, and I had a couple hours free, and I just thought I'd get us started on that. So
that's great. Yeah.
So the speed cushion, it can refer to a lot of things, but looking at the NACTO guide, which is actually something we should probably put in here as a reference when we're done, just as another resource people can look at. It's actually essentially a speed table, but it actually has a cutout in the middle of it. So emergency vehicles can get, it's not the full width of the road. It's got cutouts. So an emergency vehicle can drive with two wheels straight over it without hitting a bump. But cars and other vehicles wouldn't be able to. So it's essentially, like I say, it's like the table, but with some cutouts in it for emergency vehicles, which based on what we've heard on our, some of the input we've had, might be something worth considering. Because that was one of the concerns, I think, with talking about speed tables was emergency vehicles going over them.
Are they generally made of a different material, or are they made of like the same asphalt material?
I think it all depends on, what people want to do. A lot of what's going on that I've seen right now in the Northeast with a lot of these is things like speed tables actually, depending on the location, are being bought as things you can install and take out so that you can remove them before the winter, so the plows don't have to deal with them if that's an issue. We don't want to leave rubberized things in the road in the winter because they will get destroyed. But if we have the money to pay for it to be done as pavement, then that can be done, and the plow drivers can work with that. But again, that's something we'd have to talk with with the town staff about. So there are different applications and different ways you can do it.
Okay, I can take a picture of one of those on the way back home and send that in. So.
And if you would mark this as much detail as you can, Carla, on what street, where. I mean, maybe it's a long ride, but at least we would know the specific location. That would be a good thing. Okay. I'm wondering, is the goal here we have an inventory of things we've found here and there? Would these be things that we, as Complete Streets, would recommend to the town as options? In other words, if we know the highway superintendent is not interested in speed bumps, would we not put that in? But we would have, I don't know, things that we've reviewed that we think make sense, and the Conservation Advisory Council or the Planning Board or the Highway Department is looking at things. We've kind of screened them, I guess, if you will, to say we think these are traffic calming things that would work in Niskayuna, and would recommend them as options for Planning Board, Town Board, and other folks to consider.
I don't know if it makes sense. as recommendations from us, but maybe as they come from, no, I don't remember the name of the engineering company that's doing the recommendations at Knott Street. But like as they come up with their recommendations as calming measures for Crescent Road and Via Del Mar, just, I don't know if they provide images or descriptions, but if they just say speed humps or whatever, then maybe it could be a cross-reference table for people to look up, or we can tell people we have a cross-reference you can see on the town website here. That's sort of what I was envisioning. But
oh, so we would be sure to have the reference where the information we got on a chicane or a speed platform or a roundabout or whatever, we'd have a couple links, so if people wanted to learn more, we'd have a reference to those saying we got this information from this source and here it is, and kind of what the positives are. So
yeah, I think it's important because when you raise these options to the general public, they may not really understand what we're talking about. I mean, you sort of get that feeling that people don't really understand what they do, how they work, and how they look. I think there's probably a lot of people concerned about how they look too as well. So I think having the pictures and the examples and the description will go a long way to basically showing people the options. And this goes for people on the committees too. I mean, I'm sure we're not all familiar with all the different aspects.
I've seen Sharrows, but I didn't know what they were, you know, what they were officially called, or a chicane. I couldn't even Google chicane because I couldn't spell it properly, you know, so I think it's just a good reference to have, so people have like one place that they can look all these things up, especially on our committee's website.
I like it.
and one that I'd like to add, I did attend the session, I think it was put on by CDTC. I've got to find my notes on that, but they made reference to kind of what they call them, curb bump outs, that they have one in Waterville. So that's not far away. We could go take a picture of that. And the gentleman, the planner in Waterville, said that they actually had some traffic count data from pre and post. And so I'd like to, you know, get their study, get their data on that, and then a picture of it, because Waterville's not very far. People could take a drive there, look at that, see what it looks like. And then if we've got the pre and post data, here's a neighboring community of ours that's actually put in a traffic calming device, and they have data that shows that it actually works to calm traffic. So that's one I'll have to do some work on, take a picture and add that to the inventory. But
I've got those pictures, Bill. I can provide those. I've got pictures of the Waterville bump outs and the bike lanes that they did and the temporary setups. So I can provide all those.
Okay. And then, you know, the picture we had of off of Route 50 in Glenville that had the treed median. I mean, we should definitely add that. And I was just thinking, you know, when you look at it, you know, could that work on Windsor Drive? Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think even the people that lived on Windsor or the planning board would say, gee, this doesn't look so bad here. We've got a fairly wide road already. We put a median in it with some trees on it. That's a calming thing, that having, which we still could do, really, it's a town road, that having the bike path on one side of the road and a treed median in the middle would slow some traffic down. And I just think it's kind of to Paulina's point, that when you can actually see a picture of something and maybe you drive your car to look at it, you know what people are talking about, and you'd say, yeah, that's not bad. We could do that. And especially on projects going forward, if the planning board's got some options, or even if the planning board was willing to have a session with Complete Streets, maybe post-vaccine, where we provide them with a picture package and explain what some of these are and what they do, so they would be knowledgeable about them and how they work. So, okay, thank you, Paulina, for getting us started on that. And again, if people have ideas about other traffic calming things that they want to add to our inventory, and we'll we'll maybe try to save this electronically somewhere so we have it and we can forward to the planning board and other folks. Okay, number 2.
Issued a link to a spreadsheet on the town, like from the Complete Streets Committee website and the town website. Is it an issue to link to this like Google spreadsheet? Yeah.
No, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to me like if you share the Google document, I think you're pretty safe, and we can link to anything from our website pretty much.
Okay. Great.
Well, if not, we can always save it as a PDF and post it on the website. And then if we have to update it, we can always just update it. That's easy enough to do too.
Okay, let's move on to number 2, the Complete Streets Survey. Jim Levy has been working on this for a bit now, and maybe we can do a quick update on that.
Sure. So the survey, that we're currently working on is the one that we started, shortly after COVID came in, and we've worked on it. We've tweaked it. We've made some changes over time, and we're looking to make a couple more changes and additions to it, adding in a couple questions about some specifics that have come up, I think, over the summer related to crosswalk locations on Knott Street and up on River Road, and a couple other things. We have a few more revisions we want to make, but generally speaking, I think it's pretty much ready to go after we make some of these revisions, and it's just a matter of just a matter of me making those edits and getting sign off on it and getting it out there through whatever e-blast list or other things we have at our disposal to be able to spread the word about it.
The only other thing we have to do to email blast it is just put like a brief synopsis. Like we just blasted out a survey. I don't know if any of you guys saw it for Schenectady County's hazard mitigation plan. And it was just like, Schenectady County is doing this plan. We want your input. Please fill out the survey. Here's the link. Here's why it's important. And I actually don't know because I did that for Schenectady County. So I don't know if that triggered a lot of response from people or not. But we would just need an email paragraph that we would attach to the email blast letting people know what it was. And it would be useful for that too, because we can put that on our website, because we were talking about later, once the survey's been out for whatever we decide, a month or whatever, 2 weeks, I don't know what we want to do. Is then we could, I think I was just reading this in the minutes before, Jim, you can slightly change the link and then we can post it on our website, sort of in perpetuity, right?
Yeah, I can close the link and create a new one running off the same survey. We can definitely do that, or we just leave it open and just pull down survey results based on the date that they were submitted. So if we only wanted to count the first, 2-3 weeks, we can do that. And then anything that comes in over the next several weeks, months, years, or whatever, we can just single out separately. By date.
So when you pull the information down from the website, it gives you the date that the response came in?
Oh yeah, I get the date. I get the URL of who did it, all that stuff. I can get it in an Excel spreadsheet, a PDF file. There are different ways it can get pulled down, either by individual response or summarized by question, things like that.
Yeah, so I feel like we could just keep the same link then as the most simple thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. And then, if we ever want to tweak it or change it, we can do that too, over time.
You think folks will remember their walk habits from summer and fall, or if we send it out with following a week of sub-zero weather, that they'll say, man, I haven't been walking. Will they remember their walking habits from summer and fall when they were out 4 days a week or something like that? Put that on the survey. I'm hopeful they will.
Because
I would think so.
Because it's general. It's not I've taken surveys where they're how many times did you walk in the last week? And you have to put 1 to 2, 3 to 5. Those are your doctor's surveys. But this is more general. It's did you walk more? I think I actually walked less over the pandemic. And I felt all these people who are out there doing more made me really jealous. But, I would know how to answer that. I walked less for sure.
Yeah, like I said, Laura Scott, I think it's pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And since it's so cold right now, I think people need things to do. So maybe it'll get more people to fill it out. Yes. I don't know.
Okay. Okie dokie. So I've sent Jim a few recommendations, and Laura has also sent a recommendation that we have a question about whether folks would use the crosswalk at Regent and Knott Street. And also, we know there are lots of folks interested in a crosswalk at St. Joseph and River Road. So that's a good thing. And the sidewalk on Knott Street, is that going to be part of the Co-op Plaza, or is that, I mean, I know that's not part of this, but.
Our sidewalk? The sidewalk between Lexington, or sorry, between Baker and Lexington?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not part of the county's project. That's our grant that we're working on the county with.
Well, okay, I guess I was just wondering, will that be independent, or will that be connected to the concrete work in the Co-op Block Plaza?
Independent, because they're, I mean, it's not impossible that we could use the same contractor, and but they're hiring that contractor. And we would be hiring, you know, like, and it would be a separate bidding thing, like, you know, per our grant requirements and everything. Like, we would have to put the contract for the sidewalk out to bid. If it ended up being the same contractor, maybe we would see a cost savings there. But they're definitely disconnected. It's us managing that one; they're managing the other one. It could be the same contractor, but it's not likely.
Okay, doke. Thank you, Jim, for your work on the survey, and we're going to look forward to getting that out. Earlier in the week, I asked Laura. Last year, we sent some priority letters as we talked about a whole bunch of projects looking at our town complete streets, our non-motorized connectivity map for walkers and bikers. And the consensus of the committee was for various actors, we want them to do things, and they may not do it, but we felt like if we at least ask, maybe we get on the radar and some things will happen. And so we sent a letter to the state of New York, a letter to the county, a letter to the school district, and a letter to the town board. And in each of those, we tried to identify our three priorities for the year and asked them if they would work on them. And you know, not too many things have happened off of those, but some other things have. And I guess I would just wonder if we could quickly talk about each one of those actors and see, do we still want to send, if the town supervisor is willing to send a letter again, do we agree that our priorities are still the same on those? And I guess I'd like to start with the state of New York, where sent it to Mark Sicaldo. Is that how the name is pronounced? Laura?
Yeah.
Anyway, the three things that we had on there were school zone for Craig Elementary School, also a crosswalk for Craig Elementary School in the Schenectady JCC. And that, I think, is getting across the crosswalk. And short-term, Jim, are we still just interested in a bike path that would take students from the opposite side of Craig Elementary down to the driveway at the JCC to get in? Or is this just a state-approved crosswalk to get across?
Yes, it's all of that, I think.
Okay.
I think the idea, you know, was to make sure that when, first of all, it was just an idea to get the connection there, because we know kids go back and forth between the two, and even adults, you know, that go to GE ride, you know, across the street and everything there. But I think the idea is still to try and make sure that through the capital program, assuming it passes, that this is part of that discussion and part of that effort, because if we don't do it now, it's going to be really hard to do later if they go in and redo things and then it's not part of that. So the idea would be to make sure that the school side is done. The crosswalk can go across over to, you know, the field between the two houses that exist now. That's actually JCC property, not to the existing J's driveway. And then, you know, eventually the idea would be to have a formal paved or whatever connection that gets itself to the JCC. But if we can get that crosswalk across there, then I think we'd have to talk with the J about what we can do to formalize something for kids to, you know, and adults to get to the J from that location. But I don't think we're going to be looking at a full intersection, you know, created, you know, within the next couple of years. That's a pretty big lift. I think that's the eventual idea and recommendation. That was the sketch that was put out there from the CDTC study, to make that a full 4-way intersection and look at closing the existing J driveway. But the idea now is to try and get that school zone in and get that crosswalk in as part of the school project, I think. And then we'll go from there. That's the building blocks.
Okay, so we're going to stay with 1 and 2 from our 2020 letter, or December 2019 letter, I guess. Item number 3 was a pedestrian connection to Mohawk Hudson Bike Trail, and we make note of the Flower Hill pedestrian connection. And we actually, I don't think, specified streets, but we did say a well-placed crosswalk across Route 7 will allow more people on the south side of Route 7 to take advantage of this critical pedestrian connection. And I guess I wanted to ask the committee, I know that Dart and his wife have been doing more walking. And earlier in the week, Dart mentioned that you can get across Route 7 at the intersection of St. David's Lane, but that he and his wife also tried to visit neighbors on the, I guess, the north side of Troy Road and crossed at Mohegan, but they had to run for their dear lives to get across. And we all know that Troy Road, it's almost like a river or a moat. And you're Ulysses Grant trying to get across the Rapidan River. It's hard to do. And I know Dart was not cheered by the idea, but I said if he and his wife didn't make it, the Complete Streets Committee would be happy to use that incident to jump on the state of New York to do some crosswalks on Route 7. But I guess I'm wondering, should our communication with the regional traffic engineer be to say, we would like you to look at 3 places, and you can decide when you want to do them, 3 intersections on Troy Road where we would like to see a crosswalk, a push button crosswalk to get across. I mean, certainly Mohegan might be one of those choices, and down by, Pinecrest or Douglas Court, I mean, we wanted to think about one there. And I don't know whether it's our business to make a recommendation to the state on 3 intersections on Troy Road that we would like to see a push button crosswalk, or just to say to, the traffic engineer that, we're working on trying to improve connectivity. We'll certainly share our Complete Streets map of connectivity. We show some places where we recommend people cross Troy Road, but we want to say, not only Balltown Road, but we need some way for people to cross Troy Road, and we would like you to think about 3 places in the town of Niskayuna where you'd consider doing a push button crosswalk where people can get across. So, man, I don't know whether other committee people feel like let's just try to stick with one and get that, or whether it makes sense to, get them started on thinking about a bigger plan for crosswalks on that busy state road.
With Mohegan, you don't.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. That's okay.
Now, as someone who routinely runs across Route 7, I think the one at St. David's is good, but it's not really accessible to the bulk of the residents in the south part of town, because it's at the end of Route 7. So if you want to go to Union Street or downtown, maybe that's a good one. But the other area where I think is underserved, and this is why we go across Route 7, is like the Algonquin area. And then on the cross street, you have Avon Crest South. I forget the name, but like down in that area there. And you sort of want to get conductivity, because if people are going to go to, let's say, the Algonquin area, and then that leads to, the schools and Fernwood and stuff like that, that provides a connector where if you're going to use the St. David's crossing, you got to go all the way up to the end of Route 7, cross, then you got to go all the way back down and go across. So there must be some natural place to put that crosswalk where it improves the conductivity, but also I know there's a distance. People don't like to walk more than a quarter of a mile to basically get somewhere. So something to encourage the connectivity. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but from my perspective, that would be a reasonable place, just east of Bellevue.
Okay, so Mohegan Road is a possibility, and I don't know, Carla, you were getting ready to.
Well, yeah. Would you put in a traffic light to stop the cars then for Route 7, or would you just have flashing light type thing?
You would never get a traffic light on Route 7.
Okay.
I like the idea of asking for multiple crosswalks because I think that's an ultimate goal. But I also was like remembering that we were trying to keep these things kind of bite-sized so that we have a long laundry list of things. Not a laundry list, but like we just want to start and then just keep going because the more you do, the better you do. But like I'm wondering if it's still better to send them just a bite-sized chunk that they can incorporate, or if you want to send them the larger scale. I'm not really sure what we want to do there. And the reason that we had picked that one the last time is because they had invested that $600,000 in the Flower Hill connection. And so they may have a reason to want to continue to put a little bit more money to make that more usable to the public because they put money there not very long ago. Those are just two things to think about, but I'm actually fine with whichever way you guys want to go on that.
Yeah, Bill, this is Jim. I just want to, I guess, back up what Laura said. I think I remember the conversation being that we did want a bunch of these on Route 7, but I think the thought at the time was that if we went out there and said we want 3 or 4 of these, which I think is what we really do want in the end, and spaced out along Route 7 in the town, it might just kind of be looked at as too big a lift. I mean, I think we can maybe edit this to say there are several that we want, but maybe this is the first one. And the rationale behind it, I think, was both what Laura said with the money that was invested. It provides a direct connection to something that we know people are using. And then it also connects to the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail, which is a massive effort the state just undertook to connect Buffalo to New York City. And we still have an effort going on by the Canal Corp right now to re-envision, what's it called? Re-envision the canal. It's not quite right. So there's still a lot of focus on the canal and on the trail. And I just think if we can keep this, maybe the first one focused on that, it might get more attention than it might if we say we want 3 or 4 of them on Route 7, which isn't to say, again, we shouldn't maybe put that in there, that's the end goal. But I think if we ask for 4 up front, I think it would be a pretty heavy lift. I think just getting one's going to be a pretty heavy lift, to be honest, but I think we still need to push for it. Just because it's a heavy lift doesn't mean we shouldn't be, trying to press it forward.
What street does that new connection come off of Route 7? It says you say Flower Hill, but what development is that?
Like Pinecrest?
Yeah, Pinecrest and Douglas. I'm looking at a map.
So,
okay.
I mean, actually looking at the map, well, I guess it's Pinecrest.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, people, if they went down Merlin, they could conceivably get over to Flower Hill pretty easily to get down. So
you can, but there isn't a cross street, right? The only cross streets are Pine and Douglas, right?
Right. That was part of the thinking is we'd want to do these at cross streets, so you have a direct shot straight across, versus doing what Dart was talking about of crossing the road and then having to walk a distance to get to your destination. Because people won't walk down one side of the road just to get to that crossing. They're going to still try and dart across Route 7, generally speaking, I think.
Yeah, particularly on Sunday morning when there's no traffic.
Yeah, right.
Now, Douglas makes sense because if you think about it, it connects to Laurie, and then we have that path between at the end of Laurie and the development where the Elijah Kill Orchard used to be. I forget the names of the streets in there. So, there's a really compelling argument that is a, good trunk to get access to the bike path. So I would agree with you, Jim. If you think it's a heavy lift to get crosswalks, maybe initially we should get one first.
Well, yeah, and the idea of this one isn't even just a crosswalk. It was even looking to put in a pedestrian refuge in the middle of Route 7. So an actual physical element in the middle of the road, that keeps cars away from the pedestrians.
Yeah.
But, like a bridge?
Which triggers something in my mind. The one on by St. David's, you know, that light is just incredibly fast. So like when I go across it, I make it to the pedestrian sanctuary in the middle there, and the light's already counting down. I don't know how anybody can get across if they're slower. That's just food for thought. I know New York State has some algorithm, but it's way too fast.
And it's probably set for cars. That's a pretty funny intersection. So all the different signals and movement, turning movements and everything in there, it's probably a pretty tricky one. But you know, if that is an issue, it's, you know, that's something that can be forwarded to DOT and they can take a look at the timing, see if something's off. Sometimes they do flip and they don't hold the timing they're supposed to.
Yeah.
And those types of things can be forwarded as a simple comment. And they'll usually go out and check that out. But yeah, that's a tricky intersection. So I don't know what they can do there.
I didn't mean to sideline us, but
no, but things like that are actually kind of easy. You know, those are somewhat easy hits that we can do if we know that there's a crossing that's way too fast, you know, and it's merely just an issue of going out and seeing if they can retime it. That's just a simple reprogramming thing that we should definitely look to do. Doesn't really cost money other than some staff time.
Yeah, like we can put that in the body of the email. Like we could send them we can send them a letter and be like, here's some things. By the way, it seems like maybe the timer's off on this one cross, you know, can you check it? And then you're kind of getting.
Yeah, I mean, the Times Union, I don't get the paper anymore, but they used to have that section of the paper where people would complain about certain things to DOT. And a lot of the times people would be complaining about signal timing, and DOT would go out and check the signal timing. So it's a pretty common request.
Can I mean, just looking at the town map, I'm wondering what a light, and if there's a traffic light now at Leishakill and Troy Road, which if you only go a little ways, it takes you down to Merlin, and then Merlin takes you down where you can just jump over on Pinecrest and get to Flower Hill and go down. I mean, I don't know, do we want one that's a push button crosswalk where there's no other traffic signal, or would the state say, gee, we've already have the cars stopped at the intersection of Leishakill and Troy Road. We would put, you know, a pedestrian crossing there so that, you know, you can cross Troy Road safely there. And, you know, even if you're on Douglas Court or, I mean, you could conceivably, well, you could go across, or you could, you know, right on the sidewalk down to Leishakill and then cross, and you'd be over onto Merlin and down. And so I'm almost just trying to think, what would the state engineers be inclined to do, especially if they don't want to slow traffic moving on Troy Road, that if I've already got the cars stopped, I could put a pedestrian signal there. So, I mean, I don't know if we just want to stay with Douglas Court, if people want to look at the map, or if people want to just go out and, you know, maybe between now and our next meeting to walk it and look at things and pretend they're a state highway traffic engineer and then make a recommendation on that.
So Bill, if I'm looking at Google, you know, as we talk about this, and if this Google image is right, there actually is a push button at Leishakill. There's no countdown timers, but there are push buttons on either side, which I would guess would trigger the light to change to allow a pedestrian across.
Okay, so they've already got that one covered.
So assuming that the image is right and they haven't been removed, and I can't imagine they have, and I can't picture it in my head, there is a push button there to at least stop traffic going if you want to cross Route 7.
Okay.
And there's a crosswalk, but there isn't a countdown timer. That would be nice, but it's not there.
At least we could ask for that then, right? Too, right? In our letter, we could ask for a countdown timer at Leishakill and Troy Road.
You could.
Yeah.
But it is good to see that there's something there to, you know, to stop traffic. At least to change the signal.
Also, I mean, Dart is suggesting some, you know, a longer countdown timer on St. David's and Troy Road. I mean, if we're sending a letter to DOT, I mean, would we be, these are some things we would like in 2021, which would be, you know, maybe adjustments to the timers at St. David's and Leishakill, and a push button crosswalk at Douglas Court. I mean, I'd also like to just, you know, say for 2022 or in the next year, we'd like to ask for a push button crosswalk at Mohegan and Troy Road. So, or on a Dogger, whichever it's got a light, but
Hey, Laura.
At Mohegan, you don't have a lot of like sight line for the cars coming. Is that an issue at all with the flashing pedestrian crosswalk?
Well, yeah, I'm sure it would be. I mean, I don't know. Are you more Onondaga as opposed to Mohegan, or?
Well, no. Well, Onondaga is definitely a better. You can see cars far away, both sides. But Mohegan is more. I mean, you don't see people coming when you pull out there as easily. It's like a shorter sight line for that. But I mean, I'm not sure how it compares with, Algonquin, Mohegan. And actually Mohegan is, with the gas station, it would make it really busy to have that as well. But so maybe it is a good place, but it just, if you can't see cars coming so much when you're pulling out, are they going to be able to see the flashers? How far do they put them? And I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. As someone who goes home that way, Mohegan definitely has shorter lines of sight than either Onondaga or Algonquin. It's much harder to pull out on that street, but I would leave that to the traffic experts.
Okay.
But
Well, let me just ask the committee. Do I just want to stay with asking for one with some adjustment on things, or could we even in a letter just mention that, we're also interested in a way to get across that might utilize Onondaga, Mohegan, or Algonquin, or even Avon Crest Boulevard to get across Troy Road. So.
Hey, Clark, I don't know if you can answer this. With the new Outlook Park, I think that's what it's going to be called. Do you think that's going to bring more pedestrian traffic also to Leisha
Overlook, and yeah, it definitely would.
Sorry, Outlook Overlook. I mean, do we have anything in that area for crossing?
So that's Shannon Boulevard. I don't have a map in front of me. Do you have a map, Clark?
I don't. Let me see if I can.
I've got Google Maps up if you want me to share my screen.
Sure.
How do I do that? Let's see.
You go to present now.
Where am I?
So what Gene is talking about is what you guys recommended to the planning board is really taking full effect, and we're essentially going to create a southern entrance to Leisha right at Shannon Boulevard there.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so where was I going here?
Shannon.
Leisha.
Shannon.
The intersection of Shannon and Route 7.
Where was Shannon? I'm forgetting.
I would almost think, just looking at my town map, that folks would have to rely on the crosswalk at Leisha and Troy Road, or there's a light at Pierce and Troy Road. I mean, I don't know if there's a crosswalk there, but that would be another option to make sure we have a crosswalk there so people can get from the south side of Troy Road to the north side and then get down to Shannon and over to Leisha there.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, not really. There's not a southern cross street there, because Old Troy Road is a loop.
And that image actually shows what people are using now. That little road just to the left of Shannon Boulevard.
We've heard anecdotally that's the driveway a little bit further.
Yeah, a little bit further left.
Police park their cars there.
Over here?
They were there yesterday.
Yeah. Yep.
Were
They're there all the time.
Yeah, I've parked there. The town may want at some time maybe improve that dirt spot there, because you can get locked in if you're not careful. But
I've seen quite a few cars parked there and on Old Troy Road as well. I don't know if they're down there fishing or what, but I see cars parked there a lot.
Oh, yeah, it's a really nice area. I can attest to it. It's beautiful.
The lady on Old Troy Road, she did comment on Shannon Boulevard, and she did say that they fish.
Yeah.
Is it allowable to park in that dirt pullover?
It's owned by the town. I don't know that the town has a full policy on it or not. I don't think they kick them out. But like Jim said, like if the police feel like parking there and doing a speed trap and you're back in the and you parked your car back in the forest, you might just have to have a conversation to get out. I think when we work with the Nature Conservancy to develop the Southern Trail, part of it would involve making that an actual parking spot. I don't think it'll ever fit a whole lot of spaces. It's just not that big, and it's constrained by topography. But we would definitely make it more formal.
I think you could probably get like 5 cars in there without.
Yeah, it's not big.
Without a tremendous amount of work. More than that, I think it's going to be harder.
But if you can designate a formal 5 parking spot area there, I mean, I know everybody likes the Elisha Kill, but that's probably fine. Tell them that if there's no parking there, they have to drive to the northern side of the Elisha Kill for the bigger parking lot.
So Laura, the Holocaust Memorial, I know that's been in the works for a really long time, but that's also going in that area as well. So do we have any consideration for that as well, or?
Yep. I mean, we can look at that. And I know that we're getting a little long on time and getting a little bit off topic. But the interesting thing about this area, which Shannon Boulevard and Jim's got it up, like where the Holocaust Memorial would go, is kind of in between that clearing and where it's labeled Elisha Kill. It's like right in between that is where the Holocaust Memorial is going to go. But your 2 cross streets, I think, are Pierce, which has a crosswalk and a push button, and Elisha Kill, right? Your closest southern cross streets. And you have sidewalks on both sides of Route 7 there. So, yes, that's going to be a pedestrian generator, but I actually think you've got crosswalks on either side of it, and there isn't another cross street that you're not serving.
Yeah.
Also, Ken, right at the corner of Shannon Boulevard, are we getting a property that would be a trail into the Elisha Kill Preserve so that you could use street parking kind of along Shannon and right as it turns the corner there? There would be a trail kind of like Steve Evans walkway, that the trail would be marked and you could park your car in Shannon and walk into the Elisha Kill Preserve? Well,
the trail will start on Route 7 and the parking lot would be on Route 7. I don't think that there's incentive right now to have on-street parking on Shannon in order to access the park. I think it's making a small public parking lot on public-owned property on Route 7 there with a Southern Elisha Kill sign, small.
Yep. But if you only can get 5 or 6 cars and people want to use it, they obviously will park on Shannon and walk over to the trail entrance and walk in, most likely. If it gets to be a popular walking place to go to. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen I guess it just depends. But a lot of times, if you're hiking in the Adirondacks and stuff, if you can't fit in the trail, you can't park on the road. That's kind of a way that you kind of manage trail use so that it doesn't get overused and stuff like that. I mean,
but most people wouldn't be staying overnight.
No. Just in terms of use, I don't think we want a big lot there, to begin with. A couple of cars, I think, is fine. An informal or slightly more formalized access. And then if people can't park there, they just have to find somewhere else. If the Holocaust Memorial goes in, there may be people parking there if they really want to go that badly. It's not that far a walk, and if they're going for a hike, they can hop an extra couple hundred yards. But yeah, I don't think we want to introduce on-street parking on Shannon. I think that would be a problem. And I don't think, even from the park perspective, we want to encourage it to be a massive parking lot either. I think it's 5 to 7 cars or whatever is probably appropriately sized for the location and what we're talking about doing there.
And that's typical of Elisha Kill parks too, or not Elisha Kill, sorry, Nature Conservancy parks. I love the Moccasin, is it Moccasin Kill? Up in Rotterdam, and that one can fit like 3 cars. And I've never had a problem parking there.
Okay. Anything more on the request through the state? Can we jump over to Rory Fluman and the County of Schenectady? Last year, we asked for the crosswalk at Knott and Regent, a crosswalk at St. Joseph's and River Road, and then really the hike and bike path on Rosendale Road. Do we need to keep 1 and 2, Laura, do you think? Or are the crosswalks at Knott and Regent and the crosswalks at St. Joseph and River on the way, so we don't have to send a prayer to the county manager to try to get those?
I mean, I hate to use 2 good spots, but the county is still pushing back on us to those. So I think for the time being, it's good to continually put that in writing until we actually have the permit in hand. Because I don't know if it was here. I think it was actually at my economic development committee meeting, because the county basically pushed back really hard and basically wanted to kind of say no to both of those crossings. So I wanted to make sure that the town board was still behind us doing them. And, you know, I'm sure the Complete Streets obviously is still behind us doing them. But I think for the time being, until we have the permit in hand, we should definitely consider continually put those on there till they're built.
Okay. And then in the number 3 was we say crosswalks and sidewalks on Rosendale Road. And I'm just wondering if we need to adjust the letter to say a side path from Rose Hill down to Iroquois Middle School, and or asphalt hike and bike path from Rose Hill. And I also think from Union to Mayfair is not very wide. It probably would have to be a concrete sidewalk that would get from Upper Union to Mayfair. So we want a concrete sidewalk from Upper Union to Mayfair, and then from Rose Hill down to the Lishkill Preserve. You know, we'd like to have an asphalt walk path. And I don't know if other folks they're still supportive of that, or if they have another county road idea.
No, I think that's really important. I was wondering, though, can you go on the Dominican property on the other side of the street to make it from Union to Mayfair and have another crosswalk there, or is that not something we want to do?
I almost think it makes sense to try to keep people on the same side of the road rather than having to cross Rosendale. That, you know, once you turn on Union, and I know that you know, you have some expensive homes between Union and Mayfair, and which is why, and not a lot of space. So I don't think an asphalt walkway would be welcome necessarily, but you know, maybe a concrete sidewalk would be. I mean, I'm willing to look at anything. If we get a lot of pushback from the homeowners, we can always maybe go to the other side and then have a crosswalk to get across, you know, to the other side. But I guess, you know, the big lift is just getting from Rose Hill down to the Lishkill Preserve with an asphalt bike path, and we have to do some more work. But this at least lets the county manager know that we're interested in that project. It's on a county road, and we're going to continue to work on it. But,
and I think it's timely because of the petition that was done and some of the conversations that we've had with the politicians over the course of like the summer. I think it's time. Yeah.
It's always best to say elected officials, not politicians. If I may offer that. That's a thought. Okay.
So Bill,
go ahead.
Bill, I was just gonna say that section between Union and the section of Rosendale between Union and Mayfair. Once you get to Mayfair, it's actually the only thing that exists on Rosendale is a sidewalk. So I would almost suggest we look at a sidewalk from Union to Mayfair, because it's a sidewalk on the other side of Mayfair down to, you know, whatever a couple roads down is. And then you consider,
I agree.
Then you consider whether or not you want to do, you know, a wider path at that point. Because to do, you know, do 4 or 5 properties is a wider path, then go to a sidewalk, then go back to a wider path is kind of.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's not a lot of space, which is why I was suggesting from Upper Union to Mayfair, we stay with a concrete sidewalk. And I think the homeowners would probably be okay with that. Then when we get to Rose Hill, going the rest of the way, you know, and we talked about a 10-foot side path, but maybe that's too much because you get too close to people's front doors. I would say maybe we go with 8 foot, and we have a grassy space, a modest grassy space, and an 8-foot asphalt walkway, and we push for that to get all the way down to the entrance to the Lyserkill Preserve.
Yeah, yep. I'm just kind of supporting what you said in terms of existing conditions and what seems to make sense.
Okay.
Sounds good.
On the school district, our letter to Superintendent Tangura. We have, again, the school zone for Craig Elementary, crosswalk. Basically, it's the same as the state, those 2 items. And then on number 3, basically what we wanted to say there was asking the school district to put in an asphalt path that just is on the school property at Iroquois and Rosendale that just goes to the property line with River Road Park. In other words, once you get to the property line with River Road Park, then it becomes the town's obligation to have a paved path through River Road Park. That we're not asking the school district to pave the trails in River Road Park. We're just asking that they, do a paved trail. And I actually think the letter that we sent to the school district engineers, I mean, I don't know if we just want to get a copy of that out, send it to Cosmo and say, we're hopeful in the school board vote that, when you talk about improvements, that these improvements that we've recommended in terms of hike and bike paths to each of the schools, that those are going to be part of the money that you're going to spend. I mean, they don't say it in any of the information that they've shared with voters in the newsletter, but, maybe in our letter that we just want to reinforce that, we made these comments, we gave this input to your engineers for each of the school campuses, and we still stand behind each of those things. And in particular with the, the Rosendale Road that, we're asking them to do an asphalt walkway that really kind of just goes through by Rosendale Elementary and goes over to River Road Park, which would connect both Iroquois Middle School and Rosendale, and you'd get over to the park. So,
so Bill,
so
all 3 of those things are in our recommendation to the town board or to the school board for the bonding. Like, we actually have the Craig School and the crosswalk, and I leave it open to the committee, but I think that's a brilliant idea. You could almost just have one point and it says our main priority for you right now is when you're bonding to make sure that you're making these critical bike pedestrian connections, in connection with the additional trips that are being generated by this new configuration and all those things, and just reattach everything. Because that was sent to the engineers, and we sent it informally, to the schools. But if we attach it in a letter as our one priority, I think that'd be a really good idea.
Okay, let's do that. On our letter to the town of Niskayuna, we asked for a sidewalk on Cornelia Street going from Ray to Hillside Elementary. And then number 3, we also asked for a sidewalk on Plum Street that would go from Van Antwerp to Hillside Elementary. And I'm actually wondering, should those be combined as one request? In other words, we want to serve Hillside Elementary. It's 2 pieces. Sidewalk from Ray Street to Hillside Elementary. And then also, it's really 2 houses, just another sidewalk that goes from Van Antwerp along Plum to the sidewalk. So we save one. We combine that to make that one. Then
absolutely.
Number 2, we say a sidewalk on Birchwood Lane from Route 7 to Birchwood Elementary. That's number 2. But since we're now combining 1 and 3 into one request, we now have another one that we could ask for the town, which how about if we ask for asphalt pathway on Regent Street going from Knott Street to Elmira?
I don't know that there's enough room in Niskayuna for.
Oh, there is.
Is there?
Yeah. There's an asphalt pathway that goes from Elmira to Story now. And if you look at on Regent Street, so if you look at Regent Street, just between Knott and Elmira, there's not even a fire plug or a tree that gets in the way. And I'll ask Paulina to back me up on this, that you could put an asphalt walkway from Knott Street down to Elmira without having to disturb a tree or a fire hydrant. But I'm happy to have people walk it and look at it. Maybe we can have a draft of these letters for our next meeting, and then everybody will get a chance to read all of them before we send them. But I mean, unless somebody else has got another idea for the town that they want to submit, but
I think those are good, Bill. I just wanted to add that I thought that the sidewalk on Plum was also on the other side of Van Antwerp too, not just on the side of Van Antwerp closer to the school. Because I thought that, like Jeannie was talking about, you know, how busy Plum is, and I think Jim had also mentioned that too, and I agree. Was that accurate? Like in my imagination, it was on both sides. Plum, there would be a sidewalk on Plum on both sides of Van Antwerp.
If we're agreed to that, I'm happy to stay with that plan. If that's kind of what we had agreed to. I mean, it does say sidewalk from Plum to Hillside Elementary, but it doesn't say where you start on Plum. Whether it's actually that connects Van Antwerp to Hillside. In our letter to the town, it only had the 1 block section from Van Antwerp to Hillside Elementary.
Yeah, it was to the parking lot entrance or exit at the lower end of the hill there. So it was that stub street in.
Okay.
Not the part of Plum up by Cornelius. So Cornelius was one, and then Plum Street from Van Antwerp up to the parking lot. I guess it's the exit now was the other one, and then kind of connecting into the existing sidewalk that the school has for where the buses let the kids off. But that was the
I mean, if people want to take a look at Plum, walk it and say, is this something we want to make a recommendation? And I mean,
the other option, Bill, would be to keep the idea of just one, but make it connectivity to Hillside. So it's that segment of Plum and Cornelius, the two heavily traveled ways into Hillside. That may be one ask, so that it's more of a comprehensive, look at getting kids to Hillside than just one road or the other. That those together are a priority.
Yeah, of course, if you're on the town board, you're saying, are you asking me for a sidewalk all the way from the town line on Plum to get to Hillside Elementary, or are you asking me from Regent to VA on Plum Street or whatever? And I think we need to be specific, especially where it gets expensive, and so.
Well, I guess
I'm happy to do whatever. I mean, I love sidewalks, and I'm happy to. But you have to understand the town's only got so much money, and if the ask is too big, then you just get pushed off into 2030, and so you want to be reasonable, and so I'm.
Oh yeah, but I think both. It's that small segment from Van Antwerp to the driveway, at Hillside, and then the Cornelius side is another one, and there are a lot of kids walking and biking, and there are a ton of people driving. They're both. If we had to pick one, I think I'd be hard pressed to pick which one is more important if money wasn't a factor.
Yeah, I think both those are really critical. I would try to get both. As far as Van Antwerp to Palmer, I mean, I think that you'd have to check to see if Palmer had sidewalks. Jim, you're not thinking that's a good idea, or?
That in Schenectady, that road in the Schenectady bike plan, Plum was actually proposed as a bike boulevard, because it almost functions like a higher capacity alley of sorts. Mm-hmm. It's not a super high capacity road. It's more like an alley for those houses, but you do have cars driving down it. So it was actually proposed as a bike boulevard, where you just make some changes to the existing road to slow down the through traffic that does go through, and still allow pedestrians to kind of utilize the road as it is today. And I think that would be a way to go there, and that would connect in with what Schenectady is proposing, on their part of that road.
Palmer does have sidewalks.
Palmer does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Palmer does. Yep. So Plum would be
because if you look at it for the kids going to the school, I mean, again, it seems to me a lot of people would go up Plum, but Jim, if it's going to be some other form that allows people to walk up, then I'm willing to, think that that's probably a good idea.
To make it in, I mean, right now, I go up that way a lot when I'm walking my kids in every day now, except for today because it's too cold, so I drove. But it's there are a lot of kids that go up that way, but a lot of people park their cars there, and it's almost acting like a bump out in a way. And that's essentially what the bike boulevard would be. It would be putting in bump outs, chicanes essentially, and you know, some paint on the ground to make it into a bike boulevard. And it's even lower cost than putting in a sidewalk. I think if we're looking at money, you know, save the money for the sidewalks in the critical areas and try and do some lower cost issues, you know, on places like Plum. And I think it's appropriate in that setting, but you know, I'm just one voice, but that would be my thought on it.
Would that be a one-way then? Would Plum be a one-way after you did that, or
no?
You're just slowing the traffic down.
Yeah, I know we had issues on Regent, but if you go drive it now, you'll see there are cars parked all up and down that section of Plum between where we're between Palmer and Van Antwerp, and the cars have to swerve, you know, and slow down now. That's kind of what I tell people whenever they say they want cars to slow down. I just tell them, park your car on the road, one here and one offset here. It'll act like its own chicane. Nobody's going to complain. And people say, well, I don't want my car to get hit. And I'm like, well, you know, it's your car or it's your car or something else. If we really want to slow cars down, that's really all we have to do is just start parking our cars offset from one another and on the road. It'll slow people down. But anyway, I digress, but I'll let that go. But I would say, Bill, that, you know, the priority would be the Van Antwerp to the driveway exit on Plum, not the rest of it, at least at this point.
Okay, well, again, if we stay with that, we can make that item 1, which gives us another of our 3 requests to the town. I mean, which is why, I mean, maybe what I'd suggest is that we could have a couple committee members walk Plum to see, do we want to ask for asphalt walkway on Plum going from, say, Regent to Van Antwerp, or whether we would want to ask for an asphalt walkway or even a sidewalk on Regent Street between Knott and Almeria. There's a couple options. And
I'll just chime in and say that there's mixed support for sidewalk on Regent. I did walk it, and I don't see where we could put it without affecting trees. And, you know, coming into people's property line. My own husband, who is on the tree committee, is not in favor of it. So there's a little...
Okay. I mean, when I walked it, I just kind of visually looked at it and walked it, and I said, I could get from Almeria to Knott Street and put an asphalt walk there, and I wouldn't have to cut down a single tree or move a fire plug. I think it's eminently doable.
You'll have to walk it with me, Bill, and show me, because Chris and I walked it together, and we couldn't figure out where you could put it away from the road without affecting a tree.
Okay. Well, I'm also willing to take a walk on Plum Street between Regent and Van Antwerp to see, is there space for an asphalt walkway here? In which case, if that serves, you know, walkers getting to Hillside, especially if Hillside becomes the middle school. I mean, it may not, but
I don't think that's not proposed anymore, is it? I think that's off the table.
Off the table. Okay. Well, even if it stays in elementary, we're hearing from people that a lot of kids, parents still walk their kids there. And so if it is kind of a funnel that we think it would be safe, even if we just did 2 blocks from Regent to VA on Plum, at least, you know, kids that are walking along there can jump over onto a bike path. And so I think we should walk that and see if that's a choice. That is, unless somebody else has got another thing on their list for the town that they want to suggest now that we could do, or I mean, I guess we could leave it open for people to think about, and then we can just add it to the letter if we get a set of letters to review before our next meeting, before we send them out. But
I mean, one other place that there's a school issue is the segment of Rankin from Clifton Park over to Balltown, where all the cars come in to go right across, and all the kids kind of funnel in to cross the road at the high school drive.
Yeah, that was one. I thought that was on our list from last time too. Let's do that one. Let's put asphalt pathway from Clifton Park Road to Balltown Road on Rankin to help the high school students get in
on the south side, because that can get pretty nutty. It's a short segment, and that's all I think we need. But that's where everyone kind of funnels in from the rest of the neighborhoods.
Let's make that one number 3.
When you said asphalt walkway, do you mean asphalt sidewalk, or do you mean multi-use path?
Well, I'd say probably the 2 or 3 homeowners on Rankin would be grateful if it was a concrete sidewalk that went from Clifton Park Road to Balltown Road. But I don't know. That's something we as a committee need to think about too. Is, you know, is it cheaper for the town to just put the stone in and put an asphalt walk path that goes from Clifton Park? I mean, I think homeowners, there may not be wild about an asphalt walkway, and if the town's going to do it, they might be more agreeable to doing it if it's a concrete sidewalk. So
okay, but we're talking about a sidewalk because I don't think you can fit multi-use paths in Old Niskayuna.
No, I'm talking about maybe a 5-foot sidewalk. Okay. And the same with Regent, when I'm talking about in front of Paulina, is not an 8-foot. I'd just be talking, you know, a 5-foot asphalt path like you have on Story Avenue.
No, but Laura, I agree with you.
Sidewalk.
Like the existing one is like 3 feet. If you go down Region, it's like 3 feet. It's not. Which
isn't ADA compliant. You actually have to build a 5-foot one now. If you build 4 foot, you have to do bump outs.
Well, then I'll bump it back to sidewalk. So I'm asking for sidewalk on Cornelius, sidewalk on Plum.
Yes, you can just sidewalk. It's okay if it becomes if it's asphalt or concrete. There's benefits to both and drawbacks of both.
No, Laura, I was going to bring up this exact point. Is that I want to be sure we're consistent in our terminology. That I think, you know, in Old Niskayuna, we're pretty much talking about a sidewalk. What material it is, we'd look into, but I think it's important our terminology is consistent because you've been saying this walk path, Bill, and I've been thinking the same thing. I think we just need to be careful. So it's a sidewalk regardless of material.
Yeah. I mean, I guess an asphalt walkway the town could probably do. They put the stone in and they have their asphalt people in the summer put an asphalt pathway, which is probably half the cost of a concrete sidewalk. So, you know, we may say we don't want to set a precedent of asphalt on town roads. If we do one, we want concrete. So.
Yeah, I would just add something, and this is an observation that I noticed at Knowles. So they were trying to get people to stay off the roads. There's a lot of internal roads on the site, and they put asphalt walks in there, and people didn't use them. So then what they did was they came up with the idea that if they rip them up and put concrete walks, everybody walks them. So we might want to think about that, because for some reasons, concrete sidewalks denote pedestrian, where asphalt denotes cars. And we should look at the life too, Laura. Do we have any idea? Like, I'm sure the building department could tell us, you know, from a long-term perspective, what the cost difference between putting in maybe 2 asphalt paths as opposed to 1 sidewalk. So we should look into this and decide exactly what we want to do and then just go with it.
I will also just note that the kids, like my daughter walking home from school on Story, when the snow is not cleared off the sidewalk, even if it's just a tiny little bit of snow, because the sidewalk is so poorly, you know, it's so ripped up from tree roots, they won't even walk on the sidewalk because you can't tell where the cracks are, and all the kids walk in the street. So I went to pick her up, and all the kids are just walking straight down the road because the sidewalks are so poorly maintained, even though there's like, you know, barely an inch of snow on the ground.
Well, with that comment from Paulina, then I would amend our town letter should just be concrete sidewalks. Birchwood Lane, Cornelius, Rankin, all 3 concrete sidewalks.
Right? I mean, I think that the town can, you know, make that determination that concrete is probably what makes the most sense. But I'm sorry, you're really confusing the planner. Like, don't say asphalt walk path. Like, just erase that from your mind forever. It's sidewalk or multi-use path. And it's really important because for our ADA transition plan, and when we're communicating with grants and people who are funding us and our town board members, sidewalks have certain configurations, and it doesn't matter if it's concrete or asphalt, but they are allowed to be like 4 or 5 feet. But a multi-use path is a minimum of 8 feet and sometimes has to have a separation from the road. So when you start saying asphalt walk path, that to me, or many people who are in the business, means that you're going to be taking up like 15 foot of right of way.
So well, I stand corrected, and I'll try and be careful about that. I may slip again, and please feel free to correct me. So town letter, concrete sidewalks. Okay. So Laura, could I ask, could we work on the letters and just get a draft of them? We'll send the drafts out to the committee, and then assuming everybody likes what they see, we'll approve sending at our next meeting, sending the letters to the town supervisor to be signed and sent out. And
yeah, I think yes, we had you and the town supervisor signing them. Yes.
Okay. We've already spent some time on Route 7 crossing, so you know, we'll maybe have some more discussion. I mean, certainly we want to think about Douglas Court, and then the traffic light at Lysakill, we want to make sure it's timed so pedestrians get across, and maybe looking at the timing at St. David's Lane so there's enough time for pedestrians to get across. That would be our one ask. And then, you know, down the road, or even as a footnote, if we want to ask the state to take a look at, you know, Algonquin or Mohegan, you know, would they consider, you know, a crosswalk there? Okay, Co-op Plaza updates.
So we had our first meeting with the engineering firm, MJ Engineering. Oh, go ahead, Kyla.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know I didn't say anything. Was I supposed to say something?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were, because I know you were there. So Carla, Paulina, and Jim all came. I think we had nominated them as a Complete Streets Committee to be on that reviewing kind of task force. And I thought it was a good meeting. We were just bouncing around like what we were willing to consider, how we can kind of shape these ideas, and then, you know, get them to a point where we can release them to the public and then get a lot of feedback. And so, you know, I think, you know, like, you know, there's not room for a cul-de-sac on Via Del Mar. Like, it doesn't mean that we can't, you know, stop traffic, but, you know, like, we're not going to try and spend money on a design for that. I think that the county actually looked pretty hard on that already. But we took a look at other ways to do traffic calming and, you know, shrink that street down to like 1 lane or whatever. So we threw a bunch of ideas out there, and then had a lot of good ideas about the intersection of Clifton Park and Crescent, and shared that. So the first designs are coming back for Via Del Mar, and I'm going to be sharing those with the committee to take a look at. And then if you look at that schedule, it's fairly aggressive. I think they want to start bringing the designs to that committee, like, you know, once every couple of weeks, they'll be getting some new designs, and then we can do the public input. So I have the Via Del Mar ones came in yesterday. So I'll be sending an email out to everybody on that committee, and then we'll be taking a look at the intersection of Clifton Park and Crescent based on that initial conversation after that. And again, we've got some committee members on that, which is great. And, you know, they can chime in on how they felt that first meeting went. And then obviously I know the public is very interested. So we would be getting those out to the public through the planning board as quickly as we can.
Are we thinking about extended sidewalk on Clifton Park Road in front of like the pharmacy, the former barber shop, where the new restaurant's going to go, and both lighting and sidewalks? And I know there wasn't enough money in the original grant. I'm just wondering, is the pharmacy or would the town, is somebody thinking about sending a letter to Metroplex saying, gee, we want to kind of turn the corner on this business district. We'd like to do maybe a bike rack, or we'd like to do, you know, an 8 or 10 foot sidewalk on the Clifton Park Road side of the Co-op Plaza, and maybe, you know, I don't know, any other amenities there that where it might be a little extra money to do it. Just to ask Metroplex if they would consider funding that, so that it doesn't just fall on the new restaurant owner or the pharmacy folks, and it doesn't chip into the 1.5 million that we already have on the other grant for the Knott Street. It would be kind of new work where, you know, it would be curb or parking or something to accommodate the new Crescent Road, Clifton Park setup, and maybe sidewalk or lighting or bike rack, or even the restaurant. I was thinking this morning, if he's got an ice cream thing there, maybe he'd want 2 or 3 little tables out in front, so that when you get your ice cream cone in the summer, you can sit there and, you know, do something. But there'd be enough space so you could accommodate that. And so I'm just wondering.
Yeah, so I know it gets confusing, but because it's directly adjacent and kind of in response to the county plan, but the county plan cannot fund a single dollar of this. So it's completely separate. Like if there's a way that we can tie it into the construction so that the construction window is like a single season and, you know, we're not ripping up Knott Street in 1 year and then ripping up Clifton Park in another year. I think that was the intent, although the window of that actually happening is pretty small. It doesn't mean that we can't keep trying, but this is totally separate. And so Rosemary Perez Jaquith keeps saying, like, this is great. We're working on all of these. We want to find consensus. We want to get a plan that benefits all the businesses, increases parking, doesn't negatively impact residential properties in that area. So we have a lot of big hurdles, makes it safer for pedestrians and cars, all of those things. Get a good plan there. In the meantime, be identifying funding for it because it is currently not funded. So the two main things that we have said is, yep, if things are all going well and we have consensus and we're not alienating anybody, it may be possible to get Metroplex on board. You know, they're already contributing some money to the county project. So why wouldn't we be able to leverage that a little bit and have them contribute to the town project and then look for grants? There's a couple grants that the town board has identified that may be possible, and the windows on them are actually pretty reasonable. So, you know, we have a couple internal meetings to see what, you know, the funding would look like for this. But it is fully separate from the county's project. The county can't spend that 1.5 million.
Yeah.
It's
well,
on
I think that's quite okay, actually. I think if the pharmacy and the restaurant guy ask for facade grants to Metroplex, or the town asks, you keep it a separate project. So Metroplex has agreed to do the $250K match to do the other project. You say, dear Metroplex, the good work that you've done over here, there's some additional good work that's going to follow here. It's not funded. Would you consider, you know, helping out by doing these things? It's particularly where, you know, M&J's got a plan. So you could say, we need help with a sidewalk in front, maybe lighting that's consistent with what's on the other side, or curb work, or, you know, whatever you want to ask for. I think we should just, you know, put the letter together and send it to them. I mean, they have lots of money, and it's a business district. They want to see it be a success. So especially if, I don't know, people can save money if the concrete guys are there doing stuff. You know, if they could do curb or other sidewalk work at the same time they're doing the stuff on the co-op block, I think that saves money. And so we should ask.
Laura, does the town apply to the regional economic development councils for money? Have they gone to the REDC?
I don't think so. The grant that just came out and may have been from them, the CDTC released it not that long ago. You may have seen it.
Yeah, the regional economic development councils, you know, do a lot of the grants and things have all been rolled into the REDC process now. And, you know, I've followed those for a while, and sometimes there's a little bit of money left over here and there. And a project like this that enhances, you know, that's a public project that enhances pedestrian and bike safety, that also benefits businesses, might be something to be right up, you know, REDC's alley in terms of a grant application where we might be able to get, you know, $30,000, $50,000, $70,000. You know, typically I know communities apply to the REDCs and they have competing, you know, priorities. So small things like this sometimes don't make the cut, but that might be an option to look into once this is further along, because we've discussed it. We will have a plan, and it's something concrete that we, you know, that can be forwarded. I find that the REDC grants are, you know, they're need based and certainly based on whether or not they're viable and feasible. But there's also, I think, some amount of puzzle piece fitting. You know, when they're left with a certain amount here or there, they have to see what they can do. So it might be an option to consider.
Yeah, I'll look at that one. I did not. The one that we were looking at was the community block. It was the block grant program.
Okay. Yeah. So the REDCs, I think they come out in the beginning of the year. So it's probably coming out somewhere in March or April. I don't do a lot of the grant work, but I do a lot of work that comes out because of the grant work.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll look at that one too. That's good.
And because,
you know, Metroplex will, I think, appreciate if we're not just like, hey, Metroplex, fund this whole thing for us. If we're like, we've got this grant, it gets us this far, can you get us the rest of the way? That's probably much better conversation.
Or they'll even appreciate that you've tried some other places and got it turned down, then you've gone to them for the money. They might be more likely to. So, well, let me just say quickly, the school board vote's coming up February 9. That my wife and I went out to the school board website and we made a request for our absentee ballot. So we're going to vote absentee, but I think it's important for people to give some thought. I mean, since we've given input to the school. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying people should vote yes on the bond issue just because they're going to do some bike and pedestrian improvements to the school campuses, assuming that they will. But I plan on voting yes. I mean, I think they've tried to work this so they minimize the hit to taxpayers. They have bonding coming off, they'll be adding bonding on. They're trying to take advantage of all of the state money to the extent that they can to do these repairs. Howard has put together a little visual presentation of things that need to be repaired. And I think if we keep our schools up, it helps our homes and stuff. And so anyway, that's coming up February 9. So people either need to plan to get down to vote on the 9th, or you can make a request for a paper absentee ballot and get that back in. And then I also just wanted to quickly, I know we have some things left over from last year, but some goals for 2021. I mean, one, I want to get the survey out, which Jim's working on. We want to get that out. I know I've promised some improvements to our website. I want to, finish the Complete Streets website by, getting the resolution and the members, the town board policy, some of our accomplishments, the map, everything on the website. I want to keep going on Rosendale Road, so I need to walk that again and maybe see if Jim and Carla want to walk it with me one day, and we'll look at each home to say what needs to happen. But if we're making it a priority for the county, we need to walk that. We have cost estimates, and we need to say, here's what may need to happen. Carla and Paulina and everybody's working on the Crescent Road project. We want to see that happen. Co-op walk, we're going to be seeing that happen, those improvements, and we'll be still giving input to that. On the crosswalks, I want to keep pushing on Regent and St. Joseph, pushing on those with the county. And then our traffic calming examples. If people see something that happens in another community, they see something, we'll submit those to Paulina, and we'll try to get that inventory put together where we've got something that planning board and other people can look at. We have our bikeability, walkability to schools. We want to continue to do that. I think the letter that Laura's talked about sending to CAUSE that has the items that we've already mentioned to them, we want to do. But, other things that, are happening, say the sidewalk on Rankin, we're trying to move our feet to do some things, and certainly with the JCC. Then update of the town comp plan. We still have the transportation section that we have to do, so that's one of my goals there. So we still have lots of things to work on for 2021, and I'm making it one of my New Year's resolutions to move my feet a little faster to make progress on some of these things. So anyway.
Bill, could you?
And if you have another item that you want to submit for a goal, we should maybe we can put together a little list of our goals for 2021, so we know. And I should add another demonstration project. We should think about that as well too, and put that on our list of goals.
Could you send the 2021 goal list out? Like,
sure.
Just pick that up and send that out?
Yes, I will. I mean, it's just my list of going through my notes and putting stuff down that we haven't finished that we want to work on. But I'm happy to send it and send a draft. And then, if people have other things that, we want to add to it, we can certainly do that. And I'll put a demo project. But we can add things to it. And it just helps to have some of our goals in front of us and, keep pushing on them. So, but I will do that, Paulina. I'll send this out. Okay, we're up to an hour and a half. Does anybody else have anything that they want to suggest for our next meeting, or say to finish this meeting, or anything else that we need to take care of today? Okay, well, thank each of you for giving us part of your time this morning and for doing the work that you've done so far and everything else. So I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, and we'll have our February 26th meeting at 9 a.m. And I also did send the roster out, and I see I have Tess Healy. I left a space between Teresa and the period, so I've got to fix that so her email works. And I also put the phone numbers that people gave me to send out. So hopefully if you need to reach another member, you've got that list. So, well, unless I hear of some other business, I'll accept the motion to adjourn for today and look for a second. Motion.
Motion.
Paulina,
Second.
Second from Jim Levy. So thank you all for attending the meeting today.
Thank you,
Thank
Bill.
you, Bill.
Thank you,
Thank
Laura.
you.
Bye.
Jeannie and Clark.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.